Off in there, I got a raspy throat. I got a cold, picked up a cold. Hi everyone, I'm John Zerlo, and today I am representing the Dr. John Southwick Retirement Open House Committee. Perhaps you read in the papers or heard that our beloved Dr. John Southwick, who's been with us at the North Country Medical Center for the past 40 years, or over 40 years, has decided to retire. And in fact, he did retire 7 days ago. Several of his nurses are chairing a retirement open house so that all of you can go and wish Dr. John Southwick well. He has had many patients over the years, and this is an opportunity for you to come to say goodbye to Dr. Southwick and wish him well in his retirement. And this Southwick open house is going to be held on Saturday, May 1st, from 1 o'clock in the afternoon until 5, with a structured program at 2, which will take about an hour. So if you wish to wish Dr. Southwick well in his retirement, there's an opportunity for you to come to the Rouse's Point Recreation Center on Saturday, May 1st, from 1 to 5, with a structured program at 2. There is no charge for this open house, so just come. While you are waiting to shake Dr. Southwick's hand, perhaps there will be finger foods. It's going to be a catered affair. Drink will be available. So come for a great afternoon. No charge. However, those of you who would like to help defray the cost of this affair can make your checks out to the Dr. Southwick Open House and mail it to Charter One Bank, Post Office Box 69, Champlain, 12919. Now it's time to meet our retiree. With me, and I'm sure he doesn't need any further salutation here, is Dr. John Southwick. Dr. John, as I said a moment ago, came to Champlain in the early 60s to be our doctor. So he's going to tell us a little bit about his experience in Champlain. Dr. John, welcome. And how's the first week been?
It's been like a roller coaster, a little bit up and a little bit down. Let me say, first of all, I had nothing to do with this retirement business. In fact, I'm a little bit embarrassed. I appreciate what's being done, but a little bit embarrassed. I came to Champlain, back to Champlain, 1963, to replace Dick Schulteis, who was the first physician in the medical center. As you all know, the medical center was put together by the three communities, Rouse's Point, Champlain, and Moores, in hopes of attracting a physician. Dr. Schulteis had a good following, and I tried to encourage him to stay, but he wished to do other things. My background is that I was, obviously born in Champlain, Charles and Ann Southwick. Annie, she would like to go by, that was her given name. My father was in the lumber, coal business, part-time on the farm, and later on in the telephone business. My mother was a registered nurse. Have one brother, quite a lot older than I. People say, who's older, you or Dave? And I said, Dave's older. Anyway, we moved back to Champlain. Joanne, my wife, whom I met 1954 while visiting in Maine, and we were married in 1955. Have 4 children, Stephen, Mark, Kurt, and Amy. Have 8 grandchildren, 4 boys and 4 girls. When we moved back to Champlain, I had actually interviewed at probably 12 or 13 other communities around the area, mostly northeast. But when I chose Champlain, Joanne says, well, you never had any idea of going elsewhere anyway, so you were going to Champlain. There was a vacuum created as Dr. Schulteis left. After 2 years here, I became associated with George Starr. So in 1965, he joined our group. 1970, we had another doctor for 6 months called John Owens. And then 1981, Morris Racine, another local guy, joined our group, and we've been together ever since. Over the last several years, they have taken care of my hospital patients, and I've been very fortunate to have them cover me at nights, weekends, when I wasn't available, and to take care of my hospital patients. Over the last 2 years, I've gradually worked part-time, and for a number of reasons have decided to retire. It's been an excellent stay for me. It's been a two-way street. I've tried to provide a service, but some days I think that my patients give me more than I do, give them back. I've seen an awful lot of changes since 1963. Back in 1963, we could see patients a lot more volume than we do now, because most of our patients back then came in with something that was broken and we fixed it. Now we try to practice preventative medicine, to try to look for risk factors that people might have and try to alter those risk factors and practice preventative medicine. It requires a lot more time and a lot more input. In addition to those changes, I've seen a tremendous improvement and changes in our local hospital, which has become a medical center. When I first came, we had general surgeons, we had urology specialties, we had internal medicine specialists, obstetricians, gynecologists, and pediatricians. But apart from that, we didn't have any other subspecialties. Since then, dermatology, pulmonology, kidney specialists. At one time, we had a rheumatologist and dermatology, as I said. So, and I've seen in transition in the hospital the development of coronary care unit, intensive care units, which were not available when I first started. Basically, that's...
What a nice fellow to interview. The interviewee here, the interviewer doesn't have to ask a question. That's wonderful. I would like to also say that Doc Southwick, in addition to his medical profession in town, has been very civic-minded, supported local sporting events, always showed up at the high school games to support the players and treat them if they became injured. And I always like to say that I've got a lot in common with Dr. Southwick. We both went to the same school in high school. He became my doctor in 1963 and has been ever since. In fact, the doctor retired on April 1st, and I was the first patient on that last day. And we both had heart surgery within a month of each other in 1994. So I would like to ask Dr. Southwick at this time what he plans to do, what are some of the things that he has in mind to do in his future retirement.
That's a tough question to answer. We have a lot of different things. When I say we, this is a joint venture with, I have to say, my good wife, Joanne, who's been a tremendous support to me over the years. Way back when we first started, we didn't have answering machines. We didn't have an answering call. We had our phone our house phone also was connected to the office phone. So when I left the office, Joanne would turn on the phone, collect the calls when I left the office and got home. So she and I worked together at a lot of different things. We like to go short trips. We don't really envision any long ventures, trips. We like to go to flea markets. We like to work outside in the woods. And of course, I've got a bunch of old cars that I tinker with. I wouldn't pay myself more than 15 cents an hour for what I accomplish.
Well, I think any of Calvin's viewers, if they're regular viewers, have watched that wonderful program that when you were interviewed regarding your collection of cars, that went on for several hours, I think, on several different occasions. And then there was another program that you had, Calvin, where you and Doc and Bob toured the countryside and tried to get, as a matter of record, different areas of the town of Champlain. So you've been quite a very prominent member of Calvin's videos.
In fact, when I made the first video of my old car, one of my former workers called up and said, "I finally heard somebody that can talk more than Bob Ben." I have to say, again, if I get carried away, interrupt me, John, but I have to say that over the years, I've been blessed many times with two partners that I've told you about that have covered me and have, in a sense, allowed me to work part-time in the last few years, and tremendous support from both office help and nurses. We've had all along quality people in the office and exceptionally qualified nurses. You cannot, I don't think, do justice to a medical practice without having good, well-trained nurses, and we've had that. We've had nurses. I'll get carried away a little bit if I use too many names, but let me mention a couple.
Go right ahead.
Stella Walker was my first nurse, and she would work. Some days we worked from 7:30 in the morning till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and never a complaint. I hate to say what nurses were paid back then. They're still underpaid, but back then they were grossly underpaid. But I hired Stella for a little bit more than the going rate. But I didn't pay any attention to the quality of her work like most people do. After 6 months or a year, you get a raise. So after the second year, Stella came up to me and said, "John, it can't all be profit." So yeah, it took the hint, more than the hint. But Stella stayed with me for 4 years, and then came Ethel Underwood. Ethel was well-trained in the hospital, in the emergency room, because at that time there were no emergency room doctors. So she was triage, first person on the scene, and could take care of any emergency. She worked in pediatrics, she worked on the OB floor, so she was well-trained in many aspects of medicine. She worked for me for 25 years. I have to tell one story. I said there was going to be some anecdotes here. You got to let me have a little bit of license in that way. One day, the state police brought in a woman that was pregnant, and she was in very active labor. And they came to the back door, and I said, "Well, it's the lady's first baby, and they always at least an hour after they get fully prepared to deliver." Ethel said, "John, you bring that patient in here, we'll put her up in the stirrups, and we'll examine her." We did that, and sure enough, there's the baby's head. So we did what we did in the hospital. We did local anesthesia, we did all the preparations, and she helped me deliver that baby. It was healthy, and that was, oh my goodness, that's more than 30 years ago. She was also good in many other emergencies, because back then very often we did have emergencies come to the office, because the ambulance crews back then, they were hard workers, but they weren't the quality of emergency medical technicians that we have now.
Exactly.
And that required me to do a lot more emergency work, not only in the office, but going to accidents, going to unfortunate incidents at home. So a lot of that was covered later on and has been recently by our qualified emergency medical technicians. That, plus having an emergency room physicians, have taken a great weight off many of us in family practice.
Well, Doc mentioned some of his nurses, and also he mentioned that he was somewhat embarrassed to have this reception that we're planning for May 1st. But those nurses are the people that are right there on the ground floor and know what this gentleman has done for years, and they are the ones who are chairing this event on May 1st. If it wasn't for those nurses to get this ball rolling, don't know what would happen, but they are doing a wonderful job of organizing this, and I was just fortunate to be asked to be on the committee and to help out in any way that I can. But from what you hear from our doctor, what a career, and how many lives that he has affected over the years. And this is why on May 1st, from 1 to 5, that we want to just try to give back to John Southwick a little bit of what he has given all of his patients, the hundreds and hundreds of patients that he's had in the past 42 or 43 years. So there should be no embarrassment in this at all, John, because you've just been a wonderful asset to this little community, and some of the things that you said are so true. We're so fortunate to have such a group of talented EMT people that we have today. Sure, years ago the doctors had to leave their office or their homes before we had the medical center, in case of Dr. Allen and Dr. Vanacker, who were here before you in the village. They went on the accident scene. Today we have a qualified group of EMT people that are so well prepared to do this work. So anything else that you have to offer our viewing public before the May 1st reception? I can remember Dr. Allen. When I first came back to town in 1960 from college, it was just certainly prior to the medical center being opened, the Kiwanis Club in Rouse's Point, later called the Champlain Rouse's Point Kiwanis Club, they put on this reception for Dr. Allen, in which I attended. It was a wonderful reception held at the new school up on 276. We say new then because the school was new in 59 was the first year it was open, and that's where the reception was for Dr. Allen. So I'm proud to have something to do with attending another reception for another great local doctor.
You mentioned Dr. Allen. When I was a kid, I've been asked, when did I first think I wanted to be a physician? When I was driving around a little kiddie car, and I had my mother print on the back, or I wanted her to print, she wouldn't do it, Dr. Allen. I said, when I grow up, I want to be Dr. Allen. She says, you can't be Dr. Allen. Your name is Southwick, John Southwick. I said, well, I'm going to change it. I want to be Dr. Allen. But I thought a lot of him, and I thought so much of him that this is totally off the subject, but I'm mentioning it anyway.
Go right ahead.
I had a little dog that was probably less than a year old. He somehow got in the cellar, crawled up the cellar steps, turned around, fell down, broke his neck. He was still alive, so I gently put him in my wagon. And I said to my mother and father, I want you to call Dr. Allen to check him. Well, they said, he's not a veterinarian, he's a physician. So I said, I don't care, I want him called. So she called him, and once in a while, I suppose like all the rest of us, he gets a little grumpy. He did get a little grumpy. He came in and said, what do you expect me to do? I said, just look at that poor little dog. And he did. And I was satisfied. The little dog, of course, didn't survive, but I was satisfied. And always thought that that's what I wanted to do.
You might tell us in closing something about the medical center. I can remember back in '63, the medical center was very small. Tell us about the growth of the medical center. You remember, it was only 2 rooms when we started.
Right. What you know, as I said in the beginning, it was put together, and your father was on the board.
Yes, he was.
And
he loved that board.
Yeah, there was Jesse Walker,
Milo
Marnes,
Frank
Goodrich, and Amos Musso,
Cliff
LaPlante, and Jesse Walker, Dick Collins, and Walsh. What was his first?
Ray Walsh.
Ray Walsh.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon?
Forbes on it?
Frank Forbes, and so was...
yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Yeah, and so was... who else was on it that followed Frank?
Bob Mara?
Bob Mara was on it, too. But that was a great committee. That was put together by... you talk about people that were community-minded. My goodness, it couldn't have been a better board. And I respected them from the beginning. I said, gee, these people are, and they were good to me. too. And after a fashion, we, George Starr and I, bought the medical center from the foundation and then added the back section in 1971, which added about another 40 or, well, no more than that, about 50%. And then in 1991 or 2, we added the front section. And since then, a lot of renovations, and Morris has done a tremendous job of upgrading the renovations inside, brightened the place up, fixed some of the examining rooms, so and he's done a tremendous job of renovating the whole place. So that was how we developed it through the years and to what it is now. We've changed some of the things inside, added an emergency room along with our x-ray department and a laboratory, and that's helped out our patients as well as being convenient for us to get lab work done.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a wonderful career for Dr. John Southwick, and he decided that it was time to go different routes with his family. And we're giving you an opportunity to wish him farewell on Saturday, May 1st, from 1 to 5 at the Rouse's Point Recreation Center. Come down and wish Dr. John well. As I said previously, there probably will be many people there. If he's shaking hands and there's a little line, we're going to have much food, drink. There'll be a lot of camaraderie. Someone will be playing a violin or a piano, have a little music present. We're going to have a little structured program at 2 o'clock. Some of Dr. Southwick's old friends will be there. Some of his doctor friends that have also retired. So come and be a part of that open house for Dr. John Southwick to show your appreciation for all the years that he has served us here in the Northern Tier. There is no charge for this affair, but if you'd wish to defray some of the expenses, write your check to the Southwick Open House, mail it to Charter One Bank, Post Office Box 69 in Champlain, 12919. Dr. John, thanks for the...
Just one more thing.
Okay.
I've acknowledged 2 nurses that worked with me. At that meeting, I'm going to acknowledge by name many of the other people that have really provided a tremendous, not only tremendous, but a valuable service to the community.
On that day, it's your afternoon. You can talk as long as you want.
to. Okay.
We're a little, we have some time restraints today.
Yeah.
But on May 1st, that's your day, and you can think of all the anecdotes or whatever you want to say. It's your day. Thanks very much for coming today, and I'll see you on May 1st.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Calvin, for making the time available and to show this to your viewing audience so that they become aware of the May 1st retirement open house for Dr. Southwick. Thank you.